ICEY, genius meta commentary, or lost in translation? Hello, and welcome to First Few Hours, the latest in therapist-mandated media. I'm your host, Dragon Wagon, and for this episode I played around 7 hours of Phantom Blade's ICEY, which was enough to fully complete it with every achievement. I'm no completionist by any means, so the only reason I went this far was that in order to get the true ending, you need to unlock every achievement in the game. Now obviously I have thoughts about this, but I usually like to talk about the gameplay first. To get right into it, ICEY is a 2D hack and slash, a subgenre of the more widely known beat-em-up, an arcade staple that can trace its roots all the way back to the mid-80s, with the earliest example being a game known as Legend of Kage? Okay, you've got me. I've been reading Wikipedia at you. Admittedly, action games are not as much of an obsession for me. I'm what you'd call a more cerebral gamer, enjoying strategy games or games with a deeper meaning behind them. Foreshadowing is a literary. All you need to know for this history section here is that hack and slashes are old and beat 'em ups are older. The differentiation between the two is whether you use a sword or not. Yes, that's literally it. So what drew me to ICEY, if not the genre? Well, firstly, I am not immune to cute anime girls with Hatsune Miku colors, so well done there. I was also drawn to the fact that it advertises itself as a metagame right in the first sentence of its blurb on Steam. I grew up with games like Undertale, Doki Doki Literature Club, and later games made by Daniel Mullins like The Hex and Inscription. It's worth noting that this game came out in 2016, and anecdotally, I remember there being a rash of metagames around this time frame, which I always attributed to the success of Undertale. Needless to say, this is the part that stood out to me. But before that, let's talk about... Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of action games. It usually has to be the cream of the crop for me to stay hooked. I'm talking games like Super Metroid, Zelda Wind Waker, Dark Souls, Persona 5. Fucking hell, these are all RPGs. Anyways, I want you to understand that context for when I say that as soon as I started moving around in ICEY, my monkey brain was firing on all cylinders. The movement was smooth, the animations are fluid, the hits have the proper sound, screen shake, and... hit stop? Yeah, it feels amazing. On top of it all, the score is out of this world. It sort of has a techno dubstep vibe to it that I was definitely bobbing along to as I played. It should surprise none of you that I've wanted to be a game developer for a long time. The reason I bring this up is because I've watched a lot of videos on game development. I'm reminded of one particular interview given by artists Maddie Thorson and Noel Berry for Game Maker's Toolkit. You may know them for designing this tiny little indie gem known as Celeste, a game primarily known for doubling the trans women population, and personally causing a few of my own mental breakdowns because of just how amazing it is. In this interview, Noel and Maddie give advice on how to make your game feel good to play.
Just make sure the moment to moment feels good, so that like when someone was just sitting there with a controller and the room could be empty, but they can move their character around, make like that feel good. Like with no goals or anything, just make sure it's fun to be that character. Yeah. Like I remember playing Mario Sunshine and just running around Delfino Plaza for hours because it was just fun.
The reason this is relevant is because I'm pretty sure I could move ICEY around in an empty room or room full of enemies for hours and I would not get bored of it. Even at the most frustrating bosses the game had to offer, I couldn't help but have a blast because the game just feels so damn good to play. It's sort of necessary as the game is designed around you playing levels multiple times to find all the secrets and unlock the true ending. After your first run, you hop around all the different worlds, and while you don't need to fight everything again, it doesn't exactly feel like a chore. The only complaints I have about the way the game feels could be chalked up to nitpicks, or more likely, skill issues. The camera's a little slow, especially during boss fights. I don't really like having the boss end up off screen. The hitboxes can be a little stanky at times, but it's by no means egregious. I could count the number of incongruous animations on one hand. Speaking of which, whenever you're attacking, there can be lots of clutter on screen in the form of your animations being drawn over the enemies. This makes it hard to react to their windups. This one can probably be chalked up to age. Again, anecdotally, I don't really remember accessibility features such as screen shake toggles, reduced animations, or colorblind modes being particularly mainstream in 2016, especially for a small indie development studio. My last complaint is also my biggest. I don't really like the shield system. To elaborate, you first need to understand that this little yellow bar here is your shield. It reduces when you take damage, but it also protects most of your health, the larger blue bar. Aside from that, when the shield is fully depleted, you become susceptible to hit stun by enemy attacks. This is sort of a variation of getting stunned or staggered in your traditional beat 'em ups, and it's kind of a cool idea because it makes your character's behavior more predictable, allowing you to plan around it. With that being said, I really don't think the game needed as many instant shield depletion moves as it has. There were several times where I literally threw my hands up in the air and screamed, "What is the point of having a shield?" Now I hear you saying it. Skill issue. Just don't get hit, forehead. To which I must reply that having HP in a video game means that the designers are expecting you to get hit. And when I'm out here getting true comboed by count of 2 entire enemies or a boss's bullshit laser maneuver, it just kind of feels unfair and pisses me off. To be honest though, this only happened a handful of times. I mostly just shook it off due to how much fun the rest of the action was. No, what was harder to shake off was the irritating as fuck narrator.
Shut your bitch ass up.
I've got to stop playing story-rich games that have been translated into English. This will be a short rant as I can only call this guy annoying in so many different ways, like pest, aggravating, irritating. So there you have it. Psych! You think I'd give up this absolutely succulent, top quality, and primo opportunity to bitch? No way, Jose, and boy do I have some fucking things to say here. One would think that if the primary story of your game involves the narrator going through his wacky own little arc, that you would ensure that the guy playing the narrator is an actual actor and not a cardboard cutout. And yet, here we are, stuck with a guy who can barely emote for 90% of the game.
Are you messing with me? I told you time after time. These guys have no respect for our non-disclosure agreement. Oh, God. What are you doing here?
The problem is, I don't even know if I can complain. You see, the game was actually initially launched with English subtitles only. The voiceover options were only available in Mandarin and Japanese, with an English patch added later. So in theory, the narrator isn't terrible, I just don't speak the correct language. But have no fear, I've gotten into enough online debates on subs versus dubs to carefully navigate this situation. This next statement is probably going to divide my audience more than claiming a political affiliation, but I am absolutely a dubs guy, at least when it comes to anything not live action. Animation, video games, and any media that can change the lips lend themselves very well to being translated the proper way. My main complaint with subs is that I find them extremely distracting, to the point where I almost want to say ableism/accessibility issue. Being diagnosed with ADHD, I find it quite difficult to actually physically pull my eyes away from the bottom of the screen if I can't also understand what the character is saying audibly. In anime circles, I often hear this argument in the form of reading over the fight scene, which feels accurate. Dubs are also helpful for low vision folks who have a hard time reading, though subs are of course more important for the deaf and hard of hearing. So what I guess I'm getting at is that having the choice is definitely more important than deciding either or on superiority. And yeah, a good sub is still gonna beat out a bad dub. What makes a bad dub, of course, is gonna be a case of shoddy quality one way or the other. Whether it be bad lip flaps, questionable translation work, or yes, just straight up bad voice acting.
She is ready.
This is enough to call a subs guy down from his almighty throne and scream, "Nay! Nay, I say!" I'm reminded of sitting on my living room floor on Saturday mornings, bowl of Lucky Charms in hand as I watch 4 kids dubs of Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! None the wiser to the shoddy workmanship that decrepit old bastard of a network put in some of my favorite TV shows. I can still hear Brock calling Onigiri a jelly-filled donut, and the Yu-Gi-Oh! Ooh, quick side tangent. Did you know the Shadow Realm in Yu-Gi-Oh! Was actually complete fabrication by 4 kids? Yeah, in Japan they just straight up fucking die. There's also tons of visual censorship, like these guys pointing guns at Kaiba and boobs and... So anyways, all of this is a long walk off a short pier that says don't poorly dub your games, otherwise some yank might come around and play it in his native language and have a bad time. In all seriousness, I played this game out loud with my wife and roommate, and both of them with absolutely no stakes in the story were visibly cringing whenever the narrator flatly expressed how furious he was. It was just straight up bad. I mean, he's such an important character, it really can't help but take away from the overall narrative. Speaking of which...
What's going on?
This story is absolutely batshit insane. I kid you not when I say that when I was writing this script, I was just sat on my couch trying to peel back the layers one at a time, trying to make sense of it all. At first, I just wanted to call this game confusing and uninspired. The narrative that you first engage with is a mess of themes and ripped off ideas. The overall plot is very reminiscent of Robert W. Chambers' The King in Yellow, a book known for being a very early cosmic horror story and for inspiring this funny little white supremacist you might have heard of called H.P. Lovecraft. Side note, I really did genuinely try to read this book, but it's from 1895, and like I said earlier, I have an ADHD diagnosis. It pulls in the themes and characters from that, as well as Mr. Lovecraft's and some Christian iconography. In that sort of weird East Asian way of having it mostly just be symbolism or the names of characters, a la Evangelion. However, this first plot is an utter facade. The real plot of ICEY is that the narrator is a piece of shit, and I'm not talking about the acting anymore, rather genuinely engaging with the story. It's not our actual developer, but rather the narrator character himself who ripped off these themes and is trying to shove them down our throat by railroading us with his stupid arrows.
Just follow the arrow, okay? As long as ICEY keeps following the arrow. Follow the arrow. Follows the arrow. Following the arrow. Follows the arrow. Following the arrow.
I swear to God, I was begging for a skip dialogue button, but that is because I was an unenlightened fool. A skip dialogue button would have completely defeated the point of the narrator being annoying as fuck. Purposefully. The reason we're not supposed to like this narrator is that he's the antithesis of loving game design. He's not in it for the love of the game. He just views development as a lucrative business deal that'll get him rich and famous. He's not putting his whole pussy into it. This can be seen in the various emails and endings within the Marionette Theater secret location. We see his employees trying and utterly failing to fulfill his vague vision. We see him more interested in beautiful interns, so much so that his wife ends up shooting him. Queen behavior. As well as he immediately sells out to his director with a C-pop commercial. On the flip side, we see that not only ICEY, but every being in this game is sentient to some degree. We see in a flashback a character known as ICEY actually making some friends and being happy in this world before being tragically cut down by ICEY. Additionally, we see that if you go against the narrator's command of killing Trinity, that her lover Dahal, an awesome boss fight by the way, simply refuses to fight you. We see ICEY herself meet with the Yellow King of this world, and together they come up with a plan beyond her own perception, and that later gets executed in the true ending. If the narrator represents apathy towards your work, then ICEY represents authenticity and just kind of doing what you want. Earnestness even. In the true ending, we help ICEY defeat the narrator until he cuts off our controls and she ends up dealing the finishing blow herself. We are then treated to the final cutscene where the thesis all comes together, just a little bit. We see two beings talking about her, and the fact that it's not necessarily important what she does, just that she develops a concept of self, doing her own thing, like Miles Morales. Now that's great and all, I love it actually, but to be honest, I missed all of that while actually playing this game. What I laid out before you is not nearly as obvious when you're experiencing it yourself. The mix of themes from the facade plot start to bleed into the real plot, and they all act as little red herrings and distractions. I mean, I nearly read a book for Christ's sake. Although I still don't see why you only get snippets of the fake plot by completing the meta secrets required to see the true ending. Perhaps it's just trying to show you how bullshit it is. There is still a little bit of beauty in that plotline. I actually sort of enjoyed it during my playthrough because it was the only part of the plot where the narrator wasn't talking. Maybe that's the point. There's also this aspect of another layer. Like remember, the narrator didn't actually make this game. In fact, he himself realizes that in the end, that he was also just a predetermined tool to convey the narrative. That peels back another piece of the onion, and lets us talk about the actual fucking dude who made this. I think clearly he went to the tick-tick-boom school of thought when it comes to writing video game narratives, i.e. just write what you know. And what he knows is that he's frustrated with these bastard gamers. I think even though the narrator shows this sort of exaggerated lack of interest, at the same time he acts as this kind of meat shield for the real developer. I can think of two specific examples. In one of the meta secrets, the narrator basically takes you along his journey of developing ICEY as a game. He goes over how it's been in development for a decade, and even shows off a few prototypes. There is just no way this guy made this up on the spot for his funny little metagame. Like, that is the realest shit I've ever heard. Having a game in development for a decade sounds like insanity incarnate. I do not envy this man. You're not convinced, though. Allow me to present Exhibit B. There is this batshit rant the narrator goes on about achievement hunters and how he doesn't like them and that they're kind of missing the point. First of all, same. I personally believe that this is where the crack in the meat shield really shines through. Pulsating and such. I mentioned this at the beginning. In order to get the true ending, you need to 100% complete the game. That means every achievement. Personally, I never go for this. I am not the explorer type when it comes to my games at all. So I was actually getting a little frustrated trying to find all the appropriate secrets, and even ended up resorting to a guide for the last one or two. At the point in time I call pre-enlightenment, I was like, what the fuck is the point in this? Which, to my surprise, is actually kind of the fucking point. Post-enlightened me doesn't know whether to call this genius or stupid, because I genuinely do think it makes the game a little less fun to play. I mean, who wants to check off a checklist? But that's been the point the entire time. Video games are art. And the point is that sometimes they're bad, rather purposefully unfun to play. So yes, the plot, including the part of the plot where he makes his own game a little shittier to play on purpose, is either genius or I'm absolutely, completely, and utterly overanalyzing something that the developer himself didn't put much time into. So, does ICEY achieve what it sets out to do? Well, that's kind of a hard question to answer, as we first have to establish what it even wants to do. Clearly, it's trying to be a little more than your traditional hack and slash, which is perfectly reasonable. In a market oversaturated to the brim, why not zhuzh up your story and help your game stand out? Hell, it worked on me! With that being said, I think the narrative was a little bit too obscure for your average Joe action game player to really get a lot out of. I genuinely wish I could have understood the entire onion that is this layered-ass plot while I was playing through the game. I thought it was so stupid at first, and the only redeeming quality was the stellar gameplay. gameplay. Yeah, remember when the video was about that? I wrote the first half of this script completely oblivious. The plot just tickling the back of my mind like it had something to say, but I couldn't figure out what for the life of me it was. It was only when I sat down and tried to disentangle it all for this video that it really all clicked. I'm left wondering, does retroactively understanding the genius plot of a game make it good? Kinda. If I had just been playing this game by myself with no video to make, I would have just ended up walking away going, well, that was stupid. I guess that's another dub for my therapist. An extremely common occurrence, by the way. However, I can't help but wonder if it would have all clicked if that damn narrator's actor had been a little less made of wood. So after completely throwing away my initial script, including my hilarious plan to give it a 4Kids dub out of 10, goddammit, I'm left wondering the question, does the meta-narrative, and thus ICEY as a whole, work? Yeah, I think so, with the caveat that you actually have to sit down and think about it after finishing the game, like homework. That's why my rating for this game is an English Literature 101 class out of 10. Like English Lit, it might just seem kind of boring and shitty at first. But the more you put into it, the more you actually end up getting out of it. That and sometimes you get to play around with some cool shit, like Sentient Ninja Hatsune Miku. Real talk, I usually need a YouTube video like this one to help me break down and process what a narrative is trying to tell me in the first place. So it's entirely possible that someone else could have just played this game and just intrinsically understood all of the story from the get-go and had a blast and not have all these complicated emotions about it. But that's not what happened to me, and the reason is clear.
I'm kind of retarded.
It's also possible that I'm just straight up wrong. Without taking the dev's scalp off and stirring around in his goo, I'll never really know, and some things still feel a little out of place like I mentioned earlier. With that being said, I do like this interpretation of things, and it's allowed me to get a lot more joy out of what I would have previously called a mediocre yet fun to play game. Overall, I'm fucking exhausted. This was so much more work than just shitting on a bad video game, oh my god. But at the same time, it was like super rewarding. I actually got to play a good game. Well, retroactively good at least. Hey, thanks for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to leave a like. Also, don't forget to comment down below. Do you think I was being a bit too obtuse while analyzing this one? Or would the same thing have happened to you with the plot just going straight over your head? Oh, and if you want to see more of me, go ahead and subscribe. There'll be a new first few hours every other Saturday. This one felt a little bit different both to make and in the tone of the final product. I think that's because I didn't just straight up hate this game, but I didn't really like it that much at first either. Regardless, it was pretty fun. I'd say give it a go yourself if you want. Alright, that's about all for this time. Okay, bye.